first thing you've got to do is you've got to become a geographer. You've got to understand the hand geography. And it's like any other. If you look at a map of South America, you will find there are places called the Andes, and there are places called the Amazon, and there are other places that are called different names. And if you don't know those names, you don't know your way around South America. Well, the same thing goes with a palm. They have traditional names that have been there for several centuries in the West. We're used to using them, and most palmists use them. Now, love. This is an aspect of love that you'll see, and if you look at that fairly closely, you'll notice in that hand the angle between the index finger and the thumb, when they're spread to a point where they resist. Not when they're pushed as far as they can go, but when they're spread to a point where they resist, is more than 90 degrees. Now, if this is the case on both hands, you know the person is a codependent. They cannot tell loved ones no. About 80–90% of them are also controllers. And they think by agreeing with loved ones, they're staying in control of the situation. So they're kidding themselves because, in fact, they're not in control of the situation. The other person is in control of the situation because they figured out this person can't say no. So they got themselves in a catch-22 situation. And you can notice the change. The change happens when you see one of the fingers and you're just spreading them only until you meet resistance. That's all you're doing, just spreading until you meet resistance. Well, you can find in this situation the angle is less than 90 degrees. Now, if both hands are less than 90 degrees, the people have never been codependent. If one hand is less than 90 degrees and the other hand is better than 90 degrees, they were codependent, but they overcame it. And they learned to say no. And usually, if you look back in their love life, they've had some hard knocks. Because, you know, some people are like mules. They have to get hit in the head a few times before they learn to make some changes. At least some of them do. So it's, yeah. Now we come to lust. When you see colors in lines, it's significant. Usually the colors you see are red, and then sometimes blue or black. And it may be in the whole line, or it may be in just a little portion of the line. And wherever it appears, that has real significance, and if you're going to be a real hand analyst, you want to look at that. Well, you want to learn something about lust. Anyway, we're looking at these lines. They're called relationship lines. And they go horizontal underneath the little finger. And they're above the next major line, which is called the head line, which sweeps across the hand. Now you look for color in those lines. If you see red in those lines, the person is not having a fulfilled life. They're lusting. If you don't see any color in their lines, their sex life is happy. Or at least they're satisfied with where it's at. And you'll find some people that they don't have anything going on in their life, and they're happy with that. And the lines will indicate they're just happy where they're at. But if you see red, they're not. And if they're married or they got a partnership, the partnership has got things to worry about. If you see darkness, indicates sadness. You may see this like on the widows or widowers who recently lost their spouse. There's to show up as a sadness in the lust line, in the love line. This can change. The colors change. They're not a permanent feature. And then you'll find the person who's really will confound you. They will show a lust line of red, and yet they'll show this little finger separated. So they'd like to have somebody warm and cuddly in their life, but they're not ready to let them in. So they're in a little confused state, you would say. They're not quite sure where they want to go with their life at the moment. This will resolve itself probably. You can probably tell them this will resolve itself within about 6 months. Life looks for homeostasis, I think, or something like that. And so it needs a balance, and they'll have to come back into some kind of a balance. Probably the little finger will get a little closer, and then when the little finger's held real close, you know they're ready for hugs again. This illustrates the difference between the left hand being the family and the private portion of the life, and the right hand being the survivor side. Because on the right hand, we see their relationship with where they're living, their castle, their security. And so when we find color in the right hand, we find their dissatisfaction with living in the place they live in. If they've recently moved, they may not have adjusted to the new place yet. If they haven't moved recently and you've got some real red color or you've got some real dark color, they really should consider moving, because they're not happy where they're at. And if you find color on both sides, you want to look at this real hard with the person. The situation of where they live could well be affecting their love life. This shows up in a number of different ways. It's like the lady who may lust, lives alone, and doesn't like her house. Well, she doesn't like her house, she's never going to invite anybody in. So then she's got unfulfilled lust. Same with the guy. So these things, you end up, again, looking for some sort of balance, and you can give you a little bit of a key to where the person may be in life. Kind of fun stuff. Empathy, vulnerability. Many of us are very vulnerable, and it starts showing up as early as first grade or kindergarten. We're vulnerable in that we are actually affected by the emotions of people around us. We don't have to look at them. They can be standing behind us and we don't even see them, but the emotions will still affect us. Those who have this, I call, are empathetic type of people. They're very useful. I had dinner one night with a dean of a nursing school, and she told me that they looked for that in their students, because the better students had the empathy and they knew where the crisis was in the ward before the bells and whistles ever went off. They just knew this. So it's very useful. Survivorship, it's a very useful thing, but it also can be very, it can hurt. For example, you take the child who's an strong empath, and you sit them in the middle of the front row in a test, and they can be very well prepared. But if anybody behind them is not prepared and goes into a panic mode, they can blow the answers right out of the child's head. And if you as a child ever were an empath, and you can look back on your schooling, and you can see the times when you went into test and you knew all the answers, and you got in there and you couldn't come up with them, and you walked out and you know them all again, this was probably what happened to you. What you should have been told to do is sit on the side of the room with your back to the wall, cross your legs, cover your paper, and in effect build a wall around yourself during a test. And you could have answered the questions. Of course, they don't teach that at the moment, but one of these days they may get smart and understand that we're a little bit broader than we're given credit for. Now, you find empaths love to dance. Why? Everybody's having a lot of fun on the dance floor. So they go out there and they dance, and it lifts their spirits, and they go home happy. They're psychic vampires. They're going around picking up all the good vibes from other people who are having fun on the dance floor. So if you're an empath and you're down, you go to a place where people are having a party or having some fun or something, and they can lift your spirits. You stay away from funerals, and you stay away from angry crowds, and if your team's losing in a sports match, leave early. Because you're going to get dragged down if you don't. And the sign that shows you that is this thing called the girdle of Venus, which is a little line that goes underneath the two middle fingers in the palm of your hand. Underneath Saturn and Apollo. So it could be a broken line or it could be a continuous one. But when you find it there, you know the person has some strong empathetic qualities. Okay, now this warm heart line. Well, this one shows up pretty well. This is what I call a warm heart line. This one goes up like that. That's a person, they're a very warm, cuddly person. They love to hug and cuddle. They're physical in their emotions. If the line tends to go straight across, they're more mental. So we call those the romantics, and these are the hugs, the warm huggers. This one with just a line going up, but not a line going straight across, will tend to admire his partner looking good on a beach towel. If the line goes straight across, they'll tend to admire the partner's mind. So we're not all attracted to the same type of people. It's one of the things that palmistry helps teach, is that we're attracted to different people. And then sometimes you'll find the line is split, and it'll want to go straight across and want to go up, and that's the person who wants a hunky nerd. And then you'll find the people who have problems, and I'm one of them. They'll have on their one hand, they will have this line that goes up, and on the other hand, they have a line that goes straight across. So if the line goes up on their right hand, they're attracted to the good-looking person on the beach towel. But when they get home with the line going straight across, if they haven't got a brain, they don't want to live with them. So they have a really a confusing situation. They're attracted to one sort to get started, but they want to live with another sort. And other subtle things that you'll look at. You look at the length of the fingers. For example, on this hand we're looking at right now, on both of these hands, the index finger is longer than the ring finger. Well, this is an indication that the hand that I've drawn there is the hand probably of a woman, and not always, but probably. And it's a hand of a person whose mother probably had a higher estrogen ratio than testosterone ratio in the womb. And it's a hand of a person who may have liked to play with dolls as a child. Reverse it, the longer ring finger than the index finger, higher risk taker, boisterous. On a girl, she was a tomboy. Nothing to do with gay or straight or anything like that. They're just other basic natures. Nothing in the hand ever tells you anybody's going to live happily ever after. It may say things will improve. It may say you're going to face some problems. But this is the start. This is where you start on learning palmistry. You start learning the geography, just the names. And you look at hands. You look at hundreds of hands, thousands of hands. I personally don't believe you can begin to be a good palmist until you've looked at least 1,000 pairs of hands.